Welcome to Lively and Unrehearsed Conversation. We call it Moral Side of the News, and we're here every week. I'm John Blim with the WHAS Crusade for Children. With me, as always, is a distinguished panel, Dr. Jamesetta Ferguson, St. Peter's United Church of Christ and Molo Village CDC, Reverend Clay Calloway, West Louisville Ministers Coalition, Rabbi Stan Miles, Louisville Melton School, and Father Tony Smith, Archdiocese of Louisville. Our first topic, we are recording this program on the eve of Jefferson County Public Schools' second stab at starting the new school year. Even the superintendent called the initial day a disaster. Parent frustration and anger boiled over at a school board meeting this week. So turning to you, panel, all hope is pinned on the success of a revised busing plan, but it's hard when things don't go right.
Last week was a disaster by any measure. Anytime your first day of school makes national news, you know that's a problem. And it was a national news story, unprecedented in the nation. You had children who, little young children, stranded on the bus until 9 and 10 o'clock at night. It was disastrous. It was traumatic. It was horrible. And the trauma that these young babies went through. Many went to school for the first day. And they had been on the bus all day, told it was going to be a big day for a little big boy making his first day of school, and they experienced that kind of trauma to be held on the bus, but they can't go to the bathroom. They literally had to urinate on themselves on the bus. That's trauma. So it was horrible. And there's no excuse and hardly any explanations for what happened last week. And for the community and those who attended the board meeting say they have no confidence in the administration, I think that is a healthy response to such a horrible result that took place last week. I think that it exposes some real problems in the system here. They had just paid a consultant to give advice on this new plan, had just, ironically enough, given Marty Polio a raise on a job well done, and have this occur on the heels of that additional reward for good service. I think it just flies in the face of everything. I think heads need to roll. I think the heads need to roll on this one. This is, you don't get a second stab at it. You move on and keep it moving. Nothing could have been more disastrous than that. They'd known about this plan since last March and April, and have it come down to this on the first day of school. It's just no excuse whatsoever.
Well, I would agree with Clay, how obnoxious the whole situation was. But I would add that the national report that I saw, Louisville's not unique.
That's correct.
That this has gone on in a number of states, and the same type of things happening. So it's not just unique with us here. One of the aspects they add, which I've seen in some of the reports, that the whole thing of the bus shortage too, which, I mean, we've gone down to almost, a third of our bus drivers are not with us this year that were with us last year. That's part of it. I'm not trying to make excuses or anything, but you say as far as the information about why it happened, well, I've seen reports also on this station that basically the Alpha Route information that set up everything for us, supposedly here, this big thing, did they use artificial intelligence? Was this a mess up? No, I don't know. But they did indicate from the company that they did what they were asked to do. And then supposedly, according to Alpha Route, there were over 1,000 new bus stops added to the program after they submitted their program to the city. There's the danger there, I think. Not so much heads to roll, but somebody ought to have their heads banged together if that's going to be the issue. But I would say this is not just a Louisville issue with the whole thing of we're lacking school teachers, we're lacking school buses. And here too, my little thing I would throw in, maybe talk about a little later on, but the question is, should we look at this district and divide it in a sense of, I know that it's a political football being tossed around, but if we can't do what we're doing now, I don't know if dividing it would help. But there's a lot more just saying that these people messed up. Did they? Yes, they did. But also at the same time, I would say some of the supporting mechanisms didn't follow through either. So I got a couple of comments, but I'll just throw those out to begin with.
We're taping this program on Thursday afternoon.
Right.
I hope that by the time it is seen on Sunday, that looking through the rear view mirror of what happened, that Friday went fantastically well for the elementary and middle school students, and that everybody was picked up, that of course the buses are going to be a little late on what is the second day of school, but not horrifically late, like 9:58 p.m. And hopefully on our way to the full system being open on Monday, that is working as well it should. I have a couple of comments that I'd like to share. First of all, they bring in all of these consultants. You know, to me, a consultant is somebody who lives 50 miles away from Jefferson County, so they must know what they're doing. I don't buy that, really. Why didn't all these consultants, you know, from MIT, that's a pretty renowned school, why didn't they see it coming? And what on earth were they doing this summer to prepare for the opening? I don't see any pre-planning. Also, I don't understand the problem. Why isn't there a GPS on every school bus? I dare say the five of us probably all have GPSs on our cell phones. The fact that there were not functioning GPS units on these buses, it makes no sense. And in the thick of it, I heard someone commenting, well, the kids who were really affected on this were mostly kids who were in magnet programs, and they should have known that in a magnet program, you don't get the same service that you get in the regular program. How terribly unacceptable. A student in the system deserves the best, whether they're in a magnet program, in a regular program, it doesn't matter. They're students, these families are consumers, and they deserve the best that can be given to them, and not because they chose one program over another. Well, you should have known there were issues. That's unacceptable.
Well, I want to take it one step beyond the bus catastrophe, because I agree with what all of you are saying, but the challenge of the multiple time starts for all of these kids and ending times is a major problem, particularly for those programs that are trying to provide additional services and support to our kids. We have an after-school program, and it is very difficult for us to plan programming for our elementary and middle school, because all of them are ending at different times of the afternoon. And so how do you plan adequate program to support the education of these young people when there is such flexibility in their ending time? So I think just the entire programming, whether it be the buses, the teaching, the supplemental programming, all of those things need to be looked at comprehensively so that we can do the best for our children, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are suffering, from all of this mess. And we're not doing our part in making sure that they have the best atmosphere and conditions for learning.
One of the telling points in my mindset, bald-headed mindset here, is going to be down the road when the sports stuff starts happening and football season hits. And then if the buses are late there and all this good stuff, I mean, that's going to have a lot more parental outcry and also coaching outcry, whatever. So that's going to show whether or not we see education in school as a priority or if it's sports. But that's another issue. But I think time will tell. Do we give them a second chance? What other option do you have? We have to basically get the kiddos there and see what happens. Again, I've said facetiously at the beginning, in our school system, we have been going to school for a couple of days now already, and nothing major has occurred as far as we can determine. But it seems to be going smoothly now. Some say, well, if you're a rich private school, our people are not rich, and it's because of the sacrifice of our people that the kiddos can come to a small school or a parochial school system here. But there are ways we can handle it. Yes, I think we should examine all issues, see what happens, and not be afraid to say, "Oops, we made a mistake." And if it's a horrible mistake, yes, we got to own up to that. Not so much head should roll. I'm saying Clay, but also heads should be banged together. Let's not do that again for the benefit of our children. They're the ones suffering. So we need to kind of keep our act together and keep trying to move forward. As Dr. Polio said, we can't go backwards on this. We really can't. So,
well, I mean, I mean, there's a lot here. I think there's a lady who spoke at the school board the other day. She kind of hit the nail on the head. She said, I forgot her name, but she said that the issue is not the buses. We don't have a bus issue. We have an equity issue. And we have an equity issue because many children are disproportionately being bused in the wrong direction. It seems like the movement is always away from their home school to someplace else. And even Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, she said there's no place like home. And that is certainly true when it comes to education. There's no place like your home school, your neighborhood, etc. So, and the reason they go away is because the school in the neighborhood is not equitable. We argued years ago, separate but equal. We should have a second round of that called separate but equitable. It has to be equitable. And when there's equity, then there will be some justice to everything within the realm of the resources that is equitable. So I think that's the place to start. And then, coming back home, we don't, need to look at this whole idea of having to move away from your neighborhood school. Always, the premise is that the best school is always away from your home. There's always someplace else. Why would I have to leave Shawnees and the centrals of the world to go someplace else when you for some reason you're saying that what you have here is not as good? So it's an equity issue. So come face to face with that one. I think therein will lie some improvement in this scenario. We just need, and then the issue of safety. Safety is number one. But even before you can get to the point of teaching, the child has to be safe. So when you put a child in unsafe circumstances and create a condition of trauma, then it is right. I'm glad they did push the pause button and said, no, we can't do anything until we get it right. You can't button the shirt till you get the first button right. The first button is wrong, then every other button is going to be off also. So I appreciate him pushing pause until they could kind of get it righter than it was. But still, they need to look at it. I was shifting gears. I was reading in my devotion yesterday about the one time that Jesus cursed. And he didn't use profanity, but he did issue a curse word about the fig tree. And he cursed the fig tree because it was not productive. So you could argue that one of the few times that Jesus cursed, it was cursing the non-productiveness of a tree that should have been productive. And he didn't hesitate to suggest pulling it up and destroying it. And of course, he went on a rant in the temple. It was another equitable issue there. So the one thing he really cursed at was not productivity, not being productive. And you had every reason to do so. Mm-hmm. So I think that we cannot push the foot and say, well, we'll give him another chance. And no, you just we have some smart people in the district right now that can come up with something different. Polio came up out of the ranks of the existing school board. That was novel. It's one of the first times we've done that in Louisville's educational system. We got people within the ranks now from the bottom up that can come up with some solutions. Yep. So I think we need to give that approach a try.
You mentioned equity and safety. Let me, if I may throw in again, the equity stuff. Yes. Yeah. In general terms, okay. But even in specifics, as I recall, they're setting up programs on the internet that parents can go and find out where their children are, things of this nature. That presumes that a lot of parents, all the parents, have access to the internet and have the instruments. That's an equality type thing too. Security, yes, I agree with you, 100%, Clay. But one of the figures I just heard was that in last year there were over 1,500 reported acts of violence by children to children on school buses. Older kids to smaller kids, younger kids, this type of thing. So that needs to be addressed as well. If you're going to have safety for children, it's not just somehow safeguarding children from the adults, but from older kids to younger kids. The whole thing of discipline needs to be there, which calls up to mind, again, they're going to have individuals on the bus. Are they trained in this? Are they certified? What about the van? Remember, they're going to have vans there. If you miss the bus, they'll go take you somewhere. Are those van drivers certified by the state to do that? Are they secure in their there are lots of questions in regards to the safety and equity. So I agree with you. Yeah, but we need to look at all issues, not just making general statements. I would say the general statements get us going, yes, but we do need to explore.
I wonder if during the summer, the time was spent on running through possible scenarios of things that could happen that would be disruptive to the system, and how and not just scenarios, but plans to deal with given scenarios. It doesn't seem to me, it seems to me that when everything was falling apart, it was like those poor souls in Maui with the firestorm coming. All of a sudden it came and they were stuck. They didn't know what to do with it or how to avoid it. And you need, especially in the world we inhabit, you need to run through worst case scenarios and have a plan of what you would do in the worst cases ready to roll.
All right, panel, you've used up about more than half the program on that first topic. So I'm glad we talked about the JCPS bus system and transportation issues, and we wish them all the best of luck. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I have a second topic for you. For the third week in a row, Donald Trump is the topic of discussion on this program. You're a different panel with your own thoughts, so let's start with the latest. Sweeping racketeering indictments in Georgia may prove to be the former president's toughest legal challenge yet over alleged efforts to overturn 2020 election results in Georgia. Turning to you, panel, how do you see this playing out?
Yeah, I think this, of all the indictments, this is the fourth. Say 3 weeks running, this is the fourth indictment in 3 weeks, number 4. And what makes this different, and many are arguing that this is quite different than the previous previous 3, was that almost everybody knows what happened here. The information was before our very eyes when he engaged in activities, phone calls after the election. It's almost like everybody knew everything that's being shared there is not anything new. Most people that are hearing it now have heard about the details of it before. The first time we hear it, we say, yeah, that's probably true because we heard it before. We hold these truths to be self-evident because we've heard it. We've seen it. Now they're going back to actual tweets he's made public. And so this one is quite unique in that the information contained in the charges have already been fully disclosed. And to connect all the dots, it makes a lot of sense because it emanated from the top, and everybody that participated with this RICO law is easy to trace it back to the head. So this is quite different, and it's a state issue. It's not a federal issue, and you're dealing with different players, those that are not under his thumb. Grand juries are made up of a wide, diverse swatch of the electorate. You know, independents, Republicans, Democrats. It's not just a political issue when you have a grand jury. They could be some of anybody. So this is quite different, and I think that there has never been a situation like this ever in American history. Here that you have a man who was not only he lost the popular vote twice in his election. He was impeached twice. and now he's indicted for the fourth time. This is unprecedented criminality in elected official in American history. So I think that this one is going to be the final blow, in my view, to this man's could be physical freedom. But what's so ironic that he still can run for public office. I mean, that's the irony of irony. He still can run for public office even right now. And
well, one
possibly,
of the comments I would throw in is that this indictment also names others. And that's going to be, could be detrimental. I understand Rudy Giuliani, Mark Meadows, all these people who are co-conspirators, they're basically having some major difficulty, financial difficulty, paying for their attorneys, et cetera. And the statement has been made that perhaps as they are squeezed more and more, that cutting deals, things of this nature, that they may turn on Mr. Trump, and they've been supporting him, but this now might bring them to the fore where they're saying, let me tell you what really happened type thing. I don't know if the prosecutors there in Georgia are seeking that or not, but it is an issue that's leading to, as I read a report this morning, that the disfavorable degree, how do I say it, those who hold President Trump in the category of disfavorable is growing. And so it's affecting his standing in the Republican Party and in the country.
I applaud the courage and the tenacity and the integrity of District Attorney Fani Willis. And the pressure, I cannot imagine the pressure this public servant has endured. Because if it had not been for her, who knows? And with what goes on, I'm just afraid for our country. I just fear for what seems to be happening. It's like nothing we have ever experienced before, ever. Before the program, we were chatting today, and the question came up, well, how does this compare with the situation in the summer of 1974 when President Nixon chose to resign from office? And to me, the answer is very simple. It doesn't compare at all, because President Nixon resigned from office. And that was that. And
he resigned
in the summer of 1974, Barry Goldwater and other Republican senators came to President Nixon and said, Mr. President, you must step down.
Right.
And he did, for the good of the country.
Yeah. I'm just so tired of him. I think I was on the last panel when we talked about him, and he just sucks out all of the oxygen in any conversation, anything that about reality. He just takes control of any situation that he's in, and it's my prayer that one day he will reap what he sows. I have to believe that that's the only way that I can have hope, is to believe that it's going to come back against him, and that the people that continue to support him will have a change in heart, and they will want to do the right thing. But things are broken in our country, and we are at a place where our personal greed and desires have become our reality, our desires to have power, have become more than our desire to want what is best for our country. And we see it play out every day. I think I heard yesterday that Marjorie, what's the woman's name?
Marjorie Taylor Greene
has she's decided that she's supporting him because she wants to be the next vice president. You know, and she's as as loony as a Looney Tune, right? But there are people just like her that will support her because of the possibility of gaining power and control over other people. And I just have to have hope that all of this will come to light. It's coming to light, but that we as a country will choose to do the right thing and to change the trajectory that we are in right now.
Let's hope so.
I think, and not to Sister Reverend Ferguson, I'm a huge fan of the Looney Tunes, so I kind of take umbrage with comparing her to Looney Tunes. Has brought so much joy to my life that hardly could be compared to a Looney Tune. But that notwithstanding, it just shows you, exposes to us the great bizarre environment that we're living in. It's way off the charts that people are living in an alternate reality. That you mentioned it's the law of reaping and sowing. This is, in my view, you sow the wind, you're going to reap the whirlwind. That's also in Scripture as well. So now we're witnessing the reaping of the whirlwind. We have an avalanche, so it's a whirlwind, like the winds blowing in Maui. It appears to be a comparable political wind blowing in America with this Trump issue, just gaining traction every year, every week, just blowing. In this case, is really unique because it's reached down to a lot of common folk that caught up in the RICO conspiracy, that likely, because of that, by design, will apply upward pressure to the top. So it's a kind of almost like a trickle up theory, kind of, where you get the underlings at the bottom and who will likely and predictably give up the one at the top, because he'll give them up in a heartbeat. So there's really no loyalty at the bottom for him whatsoever. And they likely participated in it because of pressure. They received pressure, particularly in some of those at the bottom who had no real political affinity to Trump. They had pressure applied to them, so therefore they applied subsequent pressure. So I think it's almost a perfect checkmate scenario. This is the one that will do it. Unlike any others, this is going to be the one where the whirlwind is going to be reaped in a way that we have not seen. And I am just applauding. I don't experience any angst. I'm always glad to see truth prevail. I'm always glad to see justice prevail, no matter how comfortable it may appear. But when I see it moving in that direction, it is always comforting. It gives me a sense of deep peace when I see it happen.
Well, like a Looney Tune, Reverend Calloway, we're going to say, that's all, folks. That'll bring to a close our program on both sides of the news. Thank you to Jamesetta Ferguson, Clay Calloway, Stan Miles, and Tony Smith. Join us again next week. Thank you, panel.